Hi there, today let's take a look and see how this circle of fifths can help make you a better bluegrass musician. Well, I have to say I'm not surprised. That's the reaction I get many times when I tell students we're going to take a look at this. But really, it can help you a lot, so let's investigate. The circle of fifths came about as a convenient way to remember how many sharps or flats a key has. Beginning with the key of C, which has no sharps or flats, all the white keys of the piano. If you move clockwise on the circle, you would be moving to the key of 1 sharp, the key of G, then to the key of 2 sharps, the key of D, and so on. Conversely, if you move counterclockwise on the circle, you'd be moving to the key of 1 flat, the key of F, the key of 2 flats, the key of B flat, until you get all the way down to G flat, the key of 6 flats. Notice that it could also be called F sharp, the key of 6 sharps. With that as a backdrop, let's now see how the circle can help us find the 3 main chords in any key. These 3 chords are often referred to as 1, 4, 5, either in regular numbers or in Roman numerals. We'll start with the people's key of G. 1 will be the key that we're in, so we'll put a Roman numeral 1 next to the key of G. From there, you would move counterclockwise on the circle to find your 4 chord, in this case, C. And lastly, you can find the third of the 3 main chords by moving clockwise on the circle, and in this case, we find D for our 5 chord. This process remains true for any key, so now you try it and find the 3 main chords in the key of B flat using the circle. And the 3 main chords in the key of B flat are B flat, E flat, and F. I know what you guitar players are saying, that you'll just put a capo on to play in the key of B flat and play G, C, and D chords. The reason you actually want to know the names of those chords is so that you can communicate with the mandolins and the fiddles and the other instruments that don't use capos. So go ahead and learn how to use the chart to find the 3 main chords in any key. While keys such as A flat and G flat are not very common in bluegrass, all of these keys have been commonly used by the great bluegrass players, so it's a good idea to learn the 3 main chords in these keys. The circle of fifths can help you recognize other common chords beyond just 1, 4, and 5.
What have they done to the old home place? Why did they tear it down? And why did I leave?
The song The Old Home Place introduces the concept of chords beyond just 1, 4, and 5. The A7 is a 2 chord prior to the 5 chord D. It can be found on the circle by going 2 places clockwise from your 1 chord. After you get to the 2 chord, 99% of the time it is followed by the 5 chord, so it works its way back up the circle from the 2 to the 5 to the 1. Here are some examples of other bluegrass songs that also use a 2-5-1 in their progression. The circle can help you decide if it's appropriate to use a 7th chord in place of a major chord. The Old Home Place also introduces the discussion as to when you can use a 7th chord in place of a major chord. And the guideline here is that 7th chord that you're introducing should be followed by the chord that is counterclockwise on the circle. This creates the sense of tension versus release.
Country roads take me home to the place.
In Country Roads, the D chord is the 5 chord, and it's followed by a chord that does not move back to 1. It moves to an E minor. So that is an example of where a 7th chord is somewhat inappropriate.
Country roads take me home to the place. salty dog. I won't be your man at all. Honey, let me be your salty dog.
A song like Salty Dog moves us even further back on the circle of fifths, this time taking us all the way down to what is known as the sixth chord, working its way up, 6-2-5-1, a very common progression in jazz, but many of these tunes have worked their way into bluegrass. Following our theory as to when to use seventh chords, we will begin with G major. When the E comes in, it can be a seventh chord because it's pulling up the circle. When we get to A, that could be a seventh chord because it's followed by the next chord on the circle, the D. That can also be a seventh. Now we're coming back to 1. When we come back to G, it will be followed by an E as the progression continues. So you do not want to return to a G7. So, let me be your salty dog. I won't be your man at all. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Whoops, let's go to G major. Honey, let me be your salty dog. Now see if you can find 6-2-5-1 for the key of B. The hint will be that it is a sharp key, so A flat will be G sharp and D flat will be C sharp. And 6-2-5-1 for the key of B is G sharp, C sharp, F sharp, back to B. And here's a list of many bluegrass songs that get played at your local jams, and each one of them contains a 6-2-5-1 progression somewhere in the song. Counting up the C scale explains where we get the terms fourth and fifth. F is the fourth note in the scale, and G is the fifth. Since we often move counterclockwise on the circle, it is sometimes called the circle of fourths. So both names, circle of fourths, circle of fifths, are referring to the same thing.
There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.
One final concept to cover is that of the relative minor. Often you will see an inner circle where the relative minor is placed next to the major chord. For a C chord, you would see an A minor chord. You can see that the two chords are very similar in the way they look, but also the way they sound. You can find the root of the relative minor by moving down 3 half steps from your root. Here's a C chord. Move down 3 half steps from C, B, B flat, A. That gives you your A minor for the key of C. Begin on a D chord. D, D flat, C, B. B minor is your relative minor. The most common use of the relative minor in bluegrass is as a substitute for the 1 chord. Circle Be Unbroken does not have a relative minor in it the way it is normally played.
There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.
But you could put 1 in.
There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord,